I wasn't planning to stay late that night. Fridays in our office always dissolved by 6, screens dimming, chairs pushed in halfway, coffee cups forgotten near keyboards. But she was still there. Ms. Lang. The lights in her office were softer than the rest, a warm lamp instead of the overhead glare. She had this habit of sitting with one hand resting on her chin, scrolling through files as if the world outside didn't move without her permission. I stood by the printer for a good minute longer than I needed to, pretending it had jammed. "Paper's fine," she said, not looking up. "You're stalling." Her voice had that steady, low timbre that always made me straighten up. I laughed it off, quiet, almost embarrassed. "Guess I didn't want to start the weekend yet." "Or maybe," she said, eyes still on her screen, "you didn't want to leave it unfinished." The cursor blinked between us. She finally looked up, sharp, then soft. It wasn't the kind of look that asked for anything, just one that noticed everything. My undone tie, the cold coffee on my desk, maybe even how my messages stayed unsent in the corner of my screen, names I typed and deleted before hitting enter. "I like that you stay," she said finally, "even when you don't have to." It sounded like a compliment, but it landed heavier. I folded the edge of a paper I was holding, then unfolded it again. "Just trying to learn," I said. "You make it look easy." She smiled then, small, unguarded. "It's not. But thank you." Silence settled in again. The hum of the heater filled the space where our words had been. She leaned back, sighing like someone who'd forgotten what it felt like to be tired. "You've been here 6 months now, right?" "Almost 7. "Ambitious," she said. "You're already ahead of half the team." "I'm just trying not to mess up." That made her laugh, a quiet one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "That's everyone's goal. The secret is, we all do. Constantly." I caught myself watching her hands as she spoke, the way she turned her pen, the faint silver ring she always twisted when she was thinking. "Anyway," she said, reaching for her coat, "the next project will need someone who can handle more than numbers. Someone I can trust to hold the room." She stopped then, looking at me again, longer this time. "If you want that promotion, convince me." It wasn't a challenge, not exactly. More like an opening she hadn't planned to leave. I smiled, unsure. "Convince you how?" "I guess I'll know it when I see it," she said. And then she walked out, her perfume lingering longer than her footsteps. I stood there for a while, staring at the door she'd left half open. The lamp on her desk still glowed, a soft, amber halo around the chair she'd just vacated. Outside, the city had already gone dark. I checked my phone, thumb hovering over her contact. I didn't type anything, just sat there, listening to the hum of the heater and the faint creak of the building settling into night. A message blinked on my screen then, from Miss Lang. "If you're still around, bring your coffee upstairs." My reflection on the monitor looked almost startled, or maybe hopeful. I don't know. I picked up the cup, cold now, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't overthink it. The elevator doors closed behind me with a quiet click that I didn't expect her to actually be there. But when the elevator doors opened, she was standing by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled, hair slightly loosened like the day had finally won. The city glowed beneath her, small and scattered, like 1,000 thoughts she hadn't yet organized. "You really came," she said, half smiling. "You texted," I answered. She nodded, motioning toward her desk. "You didn't have to." "I know." I set the coffee down. "But I wanted to." The air between us was still. She sat on the edge of her desk, legs crossed at the ankle, like she was balancing something fragile in her chest. "I used to love staying late," she said. "Back when this place felt like it mattered." "What changed?" She looked at me, and I almost wished I hadn't asked. "My husband used to pick me up. He said the office lights made me look younger. Now I just drive myself home." There wasn't anything to say to that, not really. I just nodded, feeling the kind of quiet you don't interrupt. "I didn't mean to make that sound sad," she said softly. "It's just, life rearranges itself when you're not looking." I found myself smiling. "Yeah, I get that." She tilted her head, studying me like she was trying to decide whether to believe me. Do you? You're what, 24? 26. Still. I shrugged. People my age lose things too. Her eyes lingered. Like what? I thought about saying something clever, something easy, but the truth slipped out instead. A friend. Last year. He used to work here, actually. She straightened, her voice softening. What was his name? Eli Lang. Her expression faltered. Barely, but enough. She looked down, then away, as if the name had pulled something loose inside her. Eli was my son, she said quietly. I froze. I didn't. It's all right, she said, shaking her head. You wouldn't have known. We sat there in silence, the city's hum filling everything we couldn't. When she finally looked at me again, her voice was steadier, but her eyes weren't. You remind me of him sometimes. The way you stay late. The way you apologize for things that don't need apologizing. I swallowed, unsure where to look. That's maybe not a good thing. She smiled faintly. Maybe it's not a bad one either. I glanced at her hands, resting near the cup I'd brought. She didn't drink from it, just traced the rim with one finger, absent-mindedly. The air felt heavier than before, but not uncomfortable. Just aware. She stood after a moment, crossing the room to adjust the blinds. You should go home. It's late. I will. Tomorrow. Then, she said, turning halfway toward me. Yeah, tomorrow. But before she could reach the door, I said her name, Ms. Lang. She looked back. You don't have to drink the coffee, I said. I just thought maybe you'd want company. She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, I did. For a second, her hand brushed mine as she took the cup. Just that, a touch that meant everything and nothing. Later, lying in bed, I replayed it in my mind. Her voice, that faint pause before she said I did. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The week after that night felt different, not in ways anyone else would notice, but in the small, unspoken things. She started keeping her office door half closed, not fully shut. When I walked by, I could see her silhouette through the frosted glass, moving slower, pausing longer between calls. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Then Tuesday came. We were reviewing a client proposal in the small conference room. Her, me, and two others. She was calm, focused, the version of her everyone admired. But once, mid-sentence, her gaze flicked toward me. Quick, instinctive, like her mind had gone somewhere else. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. After the meeting, she asked me to stay back. I wanted your opinion, she said, though the file was already finalized. I nodded, pretending to read through the pages. Everything looks fine. Does it? She leaned closer, not enough to cross a line, but close enough that I could smell her perfume, faint and clean, like rain on paper. I wanted to say something. Instead, I straightened a page that didn't need straightening. You've been quiet lately, she said. Just thinking. About work? I hesitated. Mostly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Good answer. The silence stretched again. The air between us felt like it might crack. Then the door opened. It was Ben, one of the senior analysts. Hey, sorry to interrupt, he said, half in, half out. Need your sign-off before the client call. Her voice shifted instantly. Of course. Give me a second. He left. The spell broke. When she looked back at me, she looked tired. I started. Yes, she said quickly. Go ahead. But neither of us moved. Finally, she exhaled, rubbing her temple. This is getting complicated. I didn't mean for it to. I know. Her voice softened. That's what makes it worse. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it felt too fragile not to. You think it's bad? I think, she said, folding her arms. I forgot how easily people can misunderstand kindness. The word kindness stung in some strange, quiet way. I nodded, staring at the floor. Right, I said. Of course. I turned to leave. Wait, she said. I did. When I looked back, she was standing close again. Not touching, not reaching, but close enough that I could see the small pulse at her throat. For a second, everything stopped. The hum of the air vents, the sound of traffic outside, even the space between words. If she'd said anything, I think I would have stepped forward. If I'd said anything, she might have let me. But neither of us did. Her hand moved, not toward me, but toward the door handle. She opened it slowly. "Good night," she said. And I heard it, the tremor she tried to hide under the calm. It had rained that afternoon, one of those slow, tired rains that made the world sound smaller. Most of the office left early. She didn't. Neither did I. By 7, the lights outside the glass walls flickered on, reflections stretching across her desk. She stood by the window, arms folded, watching the downpour like she was trying to remember something. "You're still here," she said when she noticed me. "So are you." She smiled faintly. "You first." I hesitated. Thought I'd wait until it slows down. "It won't," she said, turning back to the glass. "Some storms just stay." Something about the way she said it, soft, resigned, made it sound like she wasn't talking about the weather. I walked over, close enough to see our reflections merge in the window. She looked tired. Not in the way work makes you tired, but the kind that comes from holding too much in for too long. "Rough day?" I asked. "They're all rough," she said. "Just some pretend better than others." I didn't answer. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was testing if I could hold her gaze without flinching. I didn't. "You're different," she said finally. "You don't try to fill the silence." I never know what to say. That's the point. She turned toward me, leaning back against the window ledge. The city lights blurred behind her like a painting left in the rain. "You know," she said slowly, "when I first hired you, I told myself you reminded me of someone I used to know. Someone who cared too much." "Eli," I said quietly. She nodded. "Yes, but it's not just that anymore." Something cracked open in her voice right there, just slightly. Enough for me to feel it. "I shouldn't have said that," she whispered. "I'm glad you did." She closed her eyes, shaking her head. "You shouldn't be." Her fingers found the edge of the desk, gripping it lightly. "You think this is simple, don't you? A look, a late night, a little attention." "No," I said. "I think it's terrifying." That made her laugh, quietly, almost bitterly. "Good. At least you're honest." Outside, thunder rolled, faint and distant. The sound made her flinch, just a little. I wanted to reach out, to touch her wrist, to tell her she didn't have to keep pretending. But I didn't. She glanced at me, voice low. "You make it hard to stay professional." "I'm not trying to," I said. "I know." She looked away. That's the problem. The rain hit harder then, drumming against the window like it wanted to fill the silence we'd made. For a moment, she looked like she might say something else. Instead, she asked quietly, "Do you ever wish things had started differently?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The question hung there, heavy, suspended between what we'd almost said and what we couldn't afford to. She waited, eyes soft, expectant. I didn't answer. She didn't come in on Monday. Or Tuesday. The first day, I told myself she was probably working from home. Meetings, maybe. By the third, I stopped pretending it didn't bother me. Her office lights stayed off, her desk untouched, her mug still sitting on the shelf with a lipstick mark faintly clinging to the rim. Ben said something about her taking personal time. He said it too casually, like it was normal, but nothing about her absence felt normal. By Wednesday, I almost texted her. Almost. The message box sat open for 10 minutes. "Hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything. I miss talking to you." I deleted all 3. Thursday, I saw her again. Late afternoon. She walked in halfway through a meeting, looking rested but distant, like someone who'd stepped out of their own story and wasn't sure they wanted back in. "Good to see you," Ben said. She smiled politely, sat down, and didn't look at me once. Afterward, I lingered near her office. The door was open, just a little. I could hear her on the phone. Her voice was quiet, different. "Of course I told him," she said. A pause. "Yes. He knows about Eli." Another pause. "No, not yet. I don't think he should." I didn't mean to listen, but I did. She hung up, and the silence afterward was worse than the conversation. I could have walked in, asked, pretended I'd just arrived. Instead, I turned back down the hall. The next few days felt like walking through fog. She was there, but not really. Smiling when she needed to, avoiding when she didn't. Meetings became shorter, emails colder. On Friday, she stopped by my desk for the first time all week. "You're quiet lately," she said. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Guess I learned it from you." That earned a small, tired smile. "Touché. I heard you talking the other day," I said before I could stop myself. Her smile disappeared. "You were listening?" "No, just passing by." "I didn't mean to," she sighed. "You shouldn't have heard that." "Then what should I know?" She hesitated, eyes soft but guarded. "Some things aren't mine to explain." It felt like a wall dropped quietly between us. Invisible, but solid. She picked up a folder from my desk, pretending to read it. "You're doing good work," she said. "Keep it up." And then she walked away. That night, I sat in my car outside the office, engine off, rain misting the windshield. My phone glowed in the dark seat beside me. Her name in my messages, a blank space waiting. "Are we okay?" I typed it, looked at it, deleted it. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. It had been 3 weeks since she started avoiding me again. No fights, no words, just the kind of silence that fills every corner of a room, even when it's empty. I told myself I'd stopped waiting for her, but when I saw her car still parked outside after everyone else had left, I knew I hadn't. The office lights were mostly off. Her door, half open. I knocked once. "Come in," she said. She was sitting on the floor beside her desk, shoes off, papers scattered like fallen leaves. A thermos stood beside her, still steaming. "Didn't think you'd still be here," I said quietly. She smiled without looking up. "Didn't think you would be either." I sat across from her, cross-legged, like we were two people who'd forgotten what boundaries looked like. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of the heater filled the silence, that same quiet warmth that had started everything months ago. "Eli's birthday was yesterday," she said. I nodded. "I know." She looked up then, eyes soft, tired. "You remembered?" "Of course." She exhaled, long and uneven. "I went to his grave this morning. First time in a year." There was nothing I could say to that. I just waited. She went on, voice almost breaking. "I kept thinking how much he would have liked you. You remind me of who he might have been if things were different." I looked down. "That's not fair to either of us." "No," she whispered. "It isn't." She reached for her thermos, but her hand trembled slightly. I steadied it without thinking, fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away this time. "I'm sorry," I said. "If I made this harder." Her eyes met mine. "You didn't make it harder. You made me feel something again. And I hate that it scares me." We stayed like that, her hand warm beneath mine, the air between us thin. "I keep thinking," I said, "maybe this isn't about right or wrong. Maybe it's just about timing." "Timing," she echoed, like she was testing the word. "Yeah, you lost something. I did too. Maybe we both tried to fill the same space." She looked at me for a long time, longer than she should have. Then, softly, "And now?" "I don't know," I said. "I just didn't want to leave without saying I care." It wasn't a confession. Not really. But it was the truest thing I'd said in months. Her expression shifted. Not surprise, not pity. Something quieter. Relief, maybe. She squeezed my hand once before letting go. "Thank you," she said. "That's enough." I nodded, swallowing whatever else I might have said. She smiled faintly. "Walk me out." We didn't talk on the way to the parking lot. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement slick and shining under the streetlights. At her car, she turned to me. "You'll be fine," she said. "So will you." A small silence. Then she smiled, soft, real this time. "Okay." And somehow, that one word felt like everything we couldn't say. Spring came quietly that year, the kind that didn't announce itself, just slipped in between the rain and the soft light on the windows. Ms. Lang, Claire, now, moved to a smaller office. She said the big one felt too heavy. I'd been promoted by then, not because of her, but because she'd taught me how to take up space without asking for permission. We didn't talk about that night on the floor again. We didn't need to. Something had already settled between us. Not unfinished anymore, just steady. Most mornings, I'd stop by her new office around 8:47 a.m. She always had tea brewing, the same brand she'd brought in from home. I still took my coffee black. She used to tease me for it. "You'll ruin your stomach one day," she'd say. "And you'll still try to fix it," I'd answer. She'd laugh then, softly, like she didn't mean to. People in the office still thought we were just close, a mentor and her favorite junior. Maybe that's all we were at first. Maybe that's still what it looked like. But there was something in the way she looked up from her work when I entered, something that made the room feel a little more like home. Sometimes we'd eat lunch on the bench outside the building, the one near the maple tree. That's where she told me she was finally selling the house she'd lived in since Eli was born. "I think it's time," she said, half smiling. "New start?" I asked. "Not new," she said. "Just lighter." I didn't push. We'd learned by then that the best conversations were the ones that ended before they needed to. By late summer, we'd both found our rhythm again, separate, but quietly intertwined. She started bringing me books, the kind she said she'd once taught in college. I started remembering to eat breakfast. Small things, but they added up. One Friday, as we were locking up, she handed me a thermos. "Black coffee," she said, "but I added sugar this time. I'm tired of watching you wince." I smiled. "So you've finally given up on fixing me?" She paused. "No," she said, "just learning to meet you halfway." We stood there for a second. No lingering looks, no touch, just an easy silence. The kind that meant we'd made it through the hardest part. When she turned to leave, I caught my reflection in the glass door behind her, and for the first time, I didn't see someone waiting. I just saw someone there. It wasn't love like the movies. No grand gestures. No promises whispered in the dark. Just two people who had learned how to stay, even after everything that almost pulled them apart. That Monday, at 8:47 sharp, I found her already at her desk, tea steaming, eyes soft. She looked up and smiled, the same quiet smile that started everything. And somehow that was enough. "Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? The kind that ache, or the kind that heal? Tell me in the comments. Your next story might begin there."